They looked harmless, loving mothers, kind nurses, gentle grandmothers. But behind every smile was a secret. These women didn't just kill. They planned, they poisoned, and they smiled while doing it. Tonight, we uncover the 20 forgotten female serial killers. More brutal, more cunning, and far deadlier than anyone ever imagined. Number 1. Jane Toppin, the Angel of Death in White. Boston, 1890s. Jane Toppin looked like every patient's dream nurse. Calm voice, gentle smile, spotless white uniform. But under that kindness lived a woman obsessed with death itself. She didn't want to heal the sick. She wanted to watch life disappear, slowly, beautifully, and completely. Jane began experimenting on her patients at Massachusetts General Hospital. She'd mix lethal doses of morphine and atropine, pretending to adjust medication. She'd sit beside the dying, taking notes as their breathing slowed, sometimes crawling into their hospital beds to feel their last breath. Her targets weren't random. She poisoned the elderly, her friends, even her landlord, all while collecting sympathy from families who believed she'd done her best. To colleagues, she was a model nurse. To investigators later, she confessed, "It was my ambition to have killed more people, helpless people, than any man or woman who ever lived." When several of her patients began dying mysteriously, suspicions grew. One victim's autopsy revealed traces of morphine that shouldn't have been there. Jane was arrested and calmly confessed to 31 murders. Police suspected more than 100. But it wasn't the numbers that horrified the public. It was her emotionless fascination. She admitted she enjoyed the process, calling it intimate and thrilling. Declared insane, Jane Toppin spent the rest of her life inside Taunton Insane Hospital. Nurses reported she'd sometimes whisper to herself at night, "They can't catch me here. I'm safe." When she died in 1938, her body was buried quietly. No visitors, no flowers. Just Belle Gunness, the woman who fed death to her lovers. On a lonely farm in Lawport, Indiana, around 1900, lived a towering woman named Belle Gunness. To her neighbors, she was a grieving widow searching for love. To the men who answered her personal ads, she was a promise of marriage and wealth. They came carrying cash and never left. Belle lured wealthy suitors through Lonely Hearts columns, asking each to bring a little money for their new life together. Once they stepped into her farmhouse, dinner was served, laced with strychnine. At night, she dragged their bodies to the hog pen, dismembered them, and buried what was left beneath her apple trees. She even killed her own children and foster daughter when they became inconvenient. Every death made her richer. Every disappearance, another letter sent. "My dear, I await your arrival. Bring your savings, we'll start fresh." By the time authorities caught on, Belle had perfected her deadly routine. Love, poison, profit, repeat. In 1908, her farmhouse mysteriously burned to the ground. Inside, police found 4 small bodies and the headless corpse of a woman they believed was Belle. Then came the digging. Shovelful by shovelful, investigators uncovered dozens of skeletons. Men, women, even children. Some estimates reached more than 40 victims. But the missing head was never found. Witnesses later claimed to have seen Belle alive, boarding a train west, smiling under a wide-brimmed hat. Belle Gunness was never officially captured. Her legend still haunts Lawport, a ghost story wrapped in true crime. To this day, no one can say if she perished in the flames or escaped to start again. But one thing is certain. Every seed in that orchard was watered with blood. Number 3. Janine Jones, the nurse who created emergencies. In the late 1970s, a smiling Texas nurse named Janine Jones became known for her quick hands and calm under pressure. Babies seemed to collapse whenever she was around, then miraculously revived by her. Hospitals called her a hero, but no one realized that she was the reason they stopped breathing in the first place. Janine worked in pediatric intensive care units, where infants mysteriously suffered sudden cardiac arrests. She injected them with dangerous doses of drugs like succinylcholine and digoxin, chemicals that stop the heart. Then she'd rush in, saving the very lives she had endangered. It was her way of playing God, creating chaos just to be the hero. Dozens of babies died under her care, but the hospital preferred silence over scandal. When suspicions grew, instead of alerting the police, they quietly let her go, and she found a job at another clinic. Her killings didn't stop until one final baby's death exposed the truth. When investigators dug through medical records, they found a terrifying pattern. Every code blue, every unexplained death, led straight back to Janine. Tiny veins filled with drugs that should never have been there. She was arrested in 1983, charged with murder, and convicted for killing 15-month-old Chelsea McClellan. Experts believe she may have murdered as many as 60 children. Her motive? A twisted need for praise, power, and control, proving she could both take and give life. Janine Jones was sentenced to 99 years in prison. Decades later, she confessed to more murders, each delivered with a chilling lack of remorse. She once told investigators they were going to die anyway. To this day, her story stands as one of the darkest chapters in American medical history. Number 4. Aileen Wuornos, the woman who hunted men. Florida, 1989. A weathered woman with haunted eyes stands by the highway, thumbing for rides she knows will never reach their destination. Her name is Aileen Wuornos, and by the time police catch her, 7 men are dead. To the world, she's a monster. But in her own mind, she was simply fighting back. Aileen's life was tragedy from the start. Abandoned by her mother, sexually abused by her grandfather, and working as a prostitute before she was even 15. By her 30s, she lived in the shadows, roaming Florida's highways, selling her body for survival. But something inside her broke. Between 1989 and 1990, she lured men into the woods, shot them point blank, and stole their cars and cash. She claimed every killing was self-defense, that the men tried to assault her first. But investigators found a darker truth. She stalked them, planned the murders, and executed each one with cold precision. The media called her America's first female serial killer. To Aileen, it was justice, the kind the world had never given her. Her capture was cinematic. Police wired her friend, Tyria Moore, who tearfully convinced Aileen to confess. In chilling interrogation tapes, she speaks calmly, even proudly. Her words still echo. I killed them because they were going to rape me. I'd do it again. During her trial, she showed no remorse, only rage, screaming at the jury that the world had used her and now wanted her dead. Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection in 2002. Her final words, I'll be back, with Jesus, like Independence Day. A promise or a curse? Even in death, Aileen remains one of America's most terrifying and tragic figures, a killer born from pain, not power. Number 5. Nanny Doss, the giggling granny who killed for love. She looked like everyone's sweet old grandmother, soft smile, floral dresses, a plate of pie in hand. But behind that grin was a woman who had buried 4 husbands, 2 children, her mother, her sister, and even her grandson. Her name was Nanny Doss, and her victims all shared one fatal thing in common. They loved her. Born in 1905, Oklahoma, Nanny grew up reading romantic magazines and dreaming of true love. But every marriage she entered ended in tragedy, because Nanny wanted the fantasy, not the man. Her first husband drank. Her second cheated. Her solution? Arsenic in their coffee. Each time one husband fell ill, she'd shed crocodile tears at his funeral, collect the insurance money, and start looking for her next soulmate through Lonely Hearts columns. To neighbors, she was charming, sweet, even funny. To police, she was a nightmare wrapped in a pink apron. When she was finally caught in 1954, she laughed through her confession, giggling as she listed each man she'd poisoned. The press gave her a name she would never live down, the Giggling Granny. Investigators were horrified. Nanny had poisoned her mother, her own sister, and 2 of her children, all to rid herself of burdens. She'd even mailed one victim a poisoned fruitcake. When detectives asked why she killed them, she simply said, "They just got on my nerves." No guilt, no emotion, just laughter echoing through the interrogation room, a chilling soundtrack to her crimes. Nanny Doss confessed to 11 murders and received a life sentence in 1955. Even behind bars, she kept smiling, crocheting, and charming guards. When she died in prison, she was still grinning, proving evil doesn't always wear a frown. Sometimes it bakes cookies. Number 6. Dorothea Puente, the Death House landlady. In the heart of Sacramento, an elderly woman ran a quiet boarding house for the lost and forgotten. She served them warm meals, helped them cash their checks, and promised a place to call home. But beneath her kindness lay a chilling secret. Because the backyard of Dorothea Puente's house wasn't just filled with flowers, it was filled with bodies. Dorothea Puente was the perfect landlady, polite, grandmotherly, and known for taking in the elderly, the disabled, and the homeless. Her tenants trusted her. They had no idea she was cashing their Social Security checks long after they disappeared. When friends asked about the missing, Dorothea would smile and say, "Oh, they moved to a new place." But in 1988, when a social worker reported a missing tenant, police searched her property. What they found was straight out of a nightmare. 7 bodies buried in her garden, each one decomposed, each one traced back to the woman serving tea inside. Dorothea was 59, dressed in pearls, and spoke with grandmotherly calm as detectives handcuffed her. Her first words? "You'll find more." Investigators later learned she'd drugged her victims, suffocating them before burying them in the backyard. Her motive wasn't rage or revenge. It was greed. Every death meant another check in her pocket. When her crimes went public, neighbors couldn't believe it. They remembered her handing out sandwiches to the poor. Now they stood outside, watching as police unearthed her garden of death, one shovel at a time. Dorothea Puente was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to life in prison. To her dying day, she insisted she was innocent, claiming she only helped people who couldn't help themselves. But her backyard told the real story, and it still haunts Sacramento today. Number 7. Amy Archer-Gilligan, the original nursing home killer. Before there were hospitals, there were homes for the aged. In an early 1900s Connecticut, one such home promised comfort, care, and a peaceful end. It was run by a kind woman named Amy Archer-Gilligan, always smiling, always generous with her prayers. But for dozens of elderly residents, her care came with a deadly price paid in advance. Amy and her husband opened the Archer Home for the elderly and infirm in 1907. Residents paid a small fortune for lifetime care. Some even signed over their entire estates. But soon, death visited the home too often. Guests who were perfectly healthy one day were found dead the next, their tea laced with arsenic. Amy always insisted it was old age, and the local doctor signed off without question. But whispers spread through the small town. Why did she always have fresh life insurance checks? And why were her clients dying so quickly after signing them? When one relative grew suspicious and called police, they exhumed the bodies, and what they found would rewrite history's understanding of female killers. Nearly 60 residents had died under Amy's care. Laboratory tests revealed arsenic in multiple victims' remains. She had literally turned her nursing home into a killing business, murdering for profit and getting away with it for years. Locals began calling her the Angel of Mercy, unaware how ironic that title truly was. Her case later inspired the famous play and film Arsenic and Old Lace. But her reality was far darker. Amy Archer-Gilligan was convicted of second-degree murder in 1917 and sentenced to life imprisonment. She spent decades in an asylum, reportedly cheerful and polite. Even there, she tended to fellow patients with gentle care, the same hands that once poured arsenic into their tea. Number 8. Jane Toppin, the nurse who killed for thrills. Boston, 1890s. Hospitals were places of healing until Jane Toppin walked in. She was cheerful, attentive, and beloved by her patients. They called her Jolly Jane. But when she leaned over the bedside, syringe in hand, her smile hid something monstrous. Because Jane didn't just kill her patients, she killed them to feel good. Jane began as a nurse at Cambridge Hospital, charming doctors and patients alike. But behind the curtains, she experimented with morphine, atropine, and chloroform, testing how different doses slowed the heartbeat, how close she could bring someone to death and pull them back. Soon, she stopped pulling them back. She killed elderly patients, close friends, even members of her landlord's family. Her victims would die in agony, while Jane sat beside them, whispering comfort and watching the light fade from their eyes. She later confessed she found the act exciting. She called it playing God. When suspicion finally caught up to her in 1901, one autopsy revealed lethal doses of morphine, and the mask of the friendly nurse fell apart forever. Jane confessed to 31 murders, but investigators believe the number could be twice that. Her reasoning? Pure pleasure. She told police, "It was so easy. I just wanted to see what it felt like to hold life in my hands." Even in custody, she giggled and flirted with reporters, treating her crimes like gossip over tea. Her calmness was more horrifying than the killings themselves. In 1902, Jane Toppin was declared criminally insane and committed to the Taunton State Hospital. She lived there for decades, often smiling at nurses as if they were her mirror. Her final recorded words? "If I had been married, I might not have done it. Perhaps, but the dead would disagree." Number 10. Joanna Dennehy, the smiling stabber. In 2013, the quiet town of Peterborough, England, was about to meet one of the most chilling killers in modern times. Her name was Joanna Dennehy, young, beautiful, and disturbingly charming. She laughed easily, flirted effortlessly, and carried a knife in her purse. By the time police caught her, 3 men were dead, and she was still smiling. Joanna wasn't your typical serial killer. She didn't kill for money or revenge. She killed because she liked it. Born to a middle-class family, Joanna drifted into drugs, violence, and chaos. At 30, she met a homeless man named Kevin Lee, who fell hopelessly in love with her. Days later, she stabbed him through the heart and dressed his corpse in a black sequin dress as a joke. Then she lured 2 more men, stabbed them repeatedly, and dumped their bodies in ditches. When detectives tracked her down, she was on the run with 2 male accomplices, laughing, posing for selfies, and bragging, "I've got the taste for it now." No remorse, just a predator who enjoyed the hunt. When police arrested her, Joanna smirked and said, "I killed to see how it feels." It felt good. She showed no fear, no guilt, only thrill. Psychiatrists called her clinically sadistic, one of the rare women driven purely by bloodlust. In her mugshot, she's smirking, eyes gleaming like she knows something the world doesn't. She even joked in court, "I'm not sorry. I'd do it again." The courtroom froze. Joanna Dennehy was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole, only the 3rd woman in UK history to receive it. She remains behind bars, still unrepentant, still grinning in interviews. They call her the Smiling Stabber, a name that fits far too well.